Intergenerational trauma impacted every part of me. As soon as I came into this world, my dad was in the pen. He was in the pen before I was even born. When he got out of the pen, it was addictions and violence and rage.
The hurts that happened to us as children, not coincidentally, are the same hurts that our parents must have had. You can go back 3 and 4 generations and see the same hurt coming down in families.
Even though we have this thing called intergenerational trauma, we also have intergenerational healing. We actually carry the cells of healing. We carry the cells of the ancestors. Our body has the medicine to heal.
That's Liz and me. Remember Liz?
Yeah.
The queen? That's her. If you see an individual carrying the eagle staff, it's a person with authority within the community. It's leadership. When I first became chief, the elders told me that carry it with pride. Show the white people who you are and where you're coming from. I'm a Nakota elder and knowledge keeper from the Alexis Nakota Sioux Nation. I was involved in leadership as a chief for close to 30 years in our community here. Was a part of the question around intergenerational trauma, and this is an area that I feel I'm an expert in, is the historical injustices that was done to our people. This whole trauma started in 1492 when the doctrine of discovery was issued by a pope saying that, if you're not Catholic or if you're not Christian, God doesn't allow you to own land. They came and they abused our people, abused our rule of law, our natural law. John A. Macdonald, who had that same attitude where he developed the law saying that Indigenous children must maintain a civilized education. Civilized education meaning they have to go to a white school. In that negative environment, our people encountered sexual abuse. Some of them were murdered in that system. A lot of the children were very young, some 3 or 4 years old that were taken there that couldn't speak a word of English, and every time, they were spoken to English and couldn't communicate, they were beaten, Children weren't only punished, but our people as a result were threatened. As they were told that your way of praying is worshiping the devil. That forced the keepers of that to go underground, practice in secrecy. The aftermath of that becomes intergenerational trauma. There was so much damage that was done. When I came into leadership, I think there was one family that used to run the switch, and it was an elderly gentleman, an old man that was running them. He was the only one that kept enough of his memory together to be able to bring that back into reality here in this community. When we were doing some work with the Catholic high school there, There's a lot of our Indigenous kids that went to school, they shared the same things that my mother doesn't believe in it, or my grandparents never taught my parents their residential school. I don't know a thing about our culture. I don't. When I come to a ceremony, I see people. I don't know what they're doing. What is the meaning behind all that? That neglect has resulted in a lot of our young people spending long term in incarceration. Our young people need to reconnect themselves back to their spiritual origin.
So you said you used to bead some necklaces?
I used to do it with my grandma a lot. It's a very fond memory from childhood, too.
I remember my kukum and my mom would bead and tuft.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I am a registered psychologist and I specialize with Indigenous counseling. Intergenerational trauma is a trauma that is being passed down. It becomes part of the blood and it changes the neurophysiology of someone's nervous system and their brains. It shows up in how we think and how we feel. It's like this unbelievable anxiety in our system, and it's not really connected to anything, or this immense sadness and not knowing why we're sad. I have a lot of early child trauma, and how it impacted me as a parent is that I was not able to really connect with my child. I couldn't attach. I didn't have the tools to be attuned and in tune to what they needed emotionally. So as a parent, if I'm living in trauma, I'm passing that down to my children, and I'm raising them in the way of fear, constant high emotions, survival, where they are needing to survive because their parent can't. And a lot of the impacts of intergenerational trauma is that we don't have those skills as parents. That's what the residential school did. They took the child and the parent away. And when you do that, that is the most traumatic thing a person can ever go through, is the separation of a parent or a loss of a child. I have intergenerational trauma. And even though I didn't attend the residential school, I have the effects. My children have the effects. And so the effects will stop as soon as I get healthy. Then my children will also get healthy.
Maya, come. Come, baby. I was walking through and I found these and I touched it and it went, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like Creator's natural rattle for us, right? So then it made me think of our people way, way back in the day before all of the contact and everything, that we probably use these, like a baby rattle in ceremony. I mean, I don't know if we did, but in my heart, that's what it felt like. Sometimes I'll sing, I'll walk along, way, 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 hi, oh, hey. I was gifted an ancestral name, She Who Sees Clearly. I do a lot of consulting around crime due to my own youth, experiencing homelessness, experiencing addictions, experiencing racism, and ended up getting connected with old directors and wardens from the same jails that I did time in. And they wanted me to come and present. Seeing the men crammed in a room similar to this, 18 men in bunk beds, I just knew that there was something more that I could do to serve my community. But it was more, I was able to understand intergenerational trauma as I stepped into my own healing journey and started looking at those pieces of myself and seeing where that was handed down and handed off. And because of my dad's own experience with it, running away from home at a young age. He had to run away as far as he could go to get away so he wouldn't get scooped up. My dad was impacted, and his impact bled on to us as his children because he didn't know how to parent us. He didn't know how to nurture us. He didn't know how to talk about his emotions, so he was unable to teach us about our own. Watching my dad's life and him be in and out of prison, in and out of addiction, in and out of unhealthy relationship, and then you throw the violence in there and the rage, that's what we were taught. All of the impacts that he went through bled onto us. I went to jail at 16, and I spent over 22 years in jail.
I work with the men and women at the healing lodges, both at Buffalo Sage Wellness House and Stan Daniels Healing Center. I was addicted to alcohol, to street drugs, and I was a needle user. Those people that are on the street, yeah, same story as them. It's everyday stuff that can set you off. Everyday stuff like grief. And I mean, there's a lot of grief in our communities. Loss of all kinds. And people don't even get over one loss when there's more coming. Some of our intergenerational trauma is being behind bars. The trauma that is there in the correctional system. Some of the stories I've heard about what happens in there is dehumanizing. It's against the law for us to treat animals like that. Insert Your Warrior is an opportunity for the men to look at intergenerational trauma. We need to get our people to a place where they're safe enough to talk about what happened to them. Many of our people went to court to talk about their residential school experience. And they had to share stories that many of them had never really thought about. So this is an actual court document of one of the plaintiffs who took his case to court. And his lawyer listed the abuses that he feels that he had experienced. And we'll go around the circle to read one at a time.
Abuse of a plaintiff residential school by constantly assaulting, harassing him by pulling and twisting his ears and hair.
B, removing his clothing and strapping him in front of other students, causing him embarrassment, fear, and ridicule.
C, by failing to properly supervise his sleeping quarters, exposing him to sexual assault.
D, depriving him of the love and guidance of his family.
E, punishing him for his native Indian language and practicing his native culture.
F, by deliberately suppressing his native culture in order to assimilate him into the dominant Canadian culture.
G, by failing to provide adequate love and care to him, including clothing and food.
As a result of the carelessness, negligence by the minister and the oblates, the plaintiff has suffered severe and lasting injuries and damages as follows.
Loss of his Aboriginal language and culture and his family roots.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Loss of self-esteem.
Sexual trauma.
E, impaired ability to control his anger and rage.
Depression and anxiety.
Alcohol and drug abuse and addiction.
Can any of you relate to anything here? Anybody? Yeah.
My grandma and my grandpa were in residential school. They didn't really know how to parent my mother. And the love she received was, I guess, minimal. So when it was time for her to have like me and my brother and my sisters and that, she kind of turned to alcohol and drugs, I guess, to cope. And for the longest time, I held resentment towards my mother because I didn't understand what she went through. And for the longest time, she held resentment towards her mother.
I don't know if my biological parents have gone to residential school, but I assume they probably did. Never really been a part of their lives because it was never in their lives.
So you were raised in the foster care system.
I think I was like only a couple months old when I got apprehended. Other than that, that's all I really know.
That's a huge impact. Huge impact. Yeah. The Canadian government has done much more than the residential schools. Their policies from the middle of the 1800s have been about destroying the Indian in the child. And if I look around the room and I say, how many of you can speak your language? Who would that be? How many of you can speak your language?
Can I speak a little bit?
Okay. Language is 80% of the culture. 80% of our culture is in the language. So we have to work hard today to try and get it back. I went to residential school as well, and my parents went to residential school. My mother went to residential school. I've spent a lifetime recuperating from that, recovering. I went to a life skills group one time. We had to look in the mirror and say, hi there, beautiful. and so I'm in the bathroom by myself, and I did that. Hi there, beautiful. And then I said, oh, like I got shy of myself. There was nobody else in the room, but I was shy of myself because that's where our self-esteem is. It's, it's low. And then we become parents, and then we pass that on to our children. And there's been a lot of pain and a lot of tragedy.
My mom went to residential school. My dad. There was repercussions of it. Damage that they brought into our families, and it was passed on down to us. My grandma, she never talked about what happened, but she asked me to sit in her disclosure. And I was one of the first family members to hear what she went through. And 13 assaults, right? And so you sit there and you listen to it, or horrific stories that happened to her. But then that's carried on to the family. So in my family, when the abuse started, my grandma would ask me to be quiet about it. It was secrets. You're supposed to keep the secrets. So I kept everything bottled up for a very long time. I come in search of warriors, and then all of a sudden I start talking about it. I don't want it to be a secret anymore. No more secrets for me. And it was one of the reasons why I would go out and drink and stuff, and then when I would drink or use drugs, all that anger would come out. At that time, it was the channel for it all to come out. I know what's triggering it now. It's not as heavy anymore. It's not bottled up inside. There's secrets out.
So you bring up something important that we talked about earlier, and that is don't talk, don't trust, and don't feel are all rules that if you grew up in a dysfunctional family, those rules were very much alive. Then you grew up and went to jail. And in jail, the rules are the same. So then you come to Stan Daniels, to a healing center, and I ask you to talk about how you feel, to learn how to identify how you feel, to name it. I want you to talk. I want you to trust. We want them to trust us, and we want them to be aware of their feelings, identify their feelings, and be able to express their feelings, all things that they don't know how to do. There's a session called the Family Tree where we're given an opportunity to look at who are these people in your family and how many were alcoholics and drug addicts? How many went to residential school? How many people were in care? Each person gets to see, well, I'm not the only one. Everybody has this, not only the same story as you, but the same effect. They're all in jail.
That's what he went through.
So people begin to be more free to talk about things they've never talked about. The people who I see leading the way as lifers, they're looking for peace. They're looking for a better life. I think that that kind of bravery and courage is what gives others hope.
For about 5 weeks, it was really heavy when we were talking about all the trauma that we went through as kids. A lot of these guys, including myself, never really talked about it until we got here. That when I used to drink and use drugs to cope, it would come out, all that anger and all that. It would come out in rage. Then somebody would get hurt. So that played out 3 times. My sentences started at 5 years, went to 7 years, and then I got indefinite life. I can't blame residential school to a certain extent. As I got older, I understood why I was going through the things I was doing, but somewhere along the lines, I had to take responsibility for what I did and start doing something about it, and the Search Everywhere starts to teach you how to do that.
You know, it gets easier, but you have to talk about it. Silence is what keeps pain and suffering and abuse. It keeps those alive if you're silent. You know, I think that's part of that intergenerational trauma, you know, not really showing emotion, putting up these barriers and these walls because the pain's so deep, you put it somewhere dormant inside, right? A lot of us, we're in denial.
It takes a lot of courage for men that have been taught to, you know, shut up all their lives. And, you know, it's difficult to actually come out and start talking in front of people, in front of other men.
After numbing out for a majority of your life, it's kind of scary. But in the group setting, you know, you come in, you smudge, you say a prayer, and you develop this bond with the group of guys, some of who you never would have talked to before.
They taught us how to have self-care while we were going through the program. So we've been going through a great deal of sweats, one-on-ones with our POs, one-on-ones with the elders. I went to the Sundance a couple times. I've probably been a couple thousand sweats, talking to elders one-on-one. You can't just get better overnight. It takes years of therapy and working with people. But what I did was I grasped onto the culture. This is where I do a lot of cultural teachings in groups, you know, in a teepee here. And that one I set up permanently to do our counseling and our teachings in that one. In preparation of the Sundance, we have a tobacco sweat. So these last 4 years, we've had anywhere from 12 to 20 young men from the Stan Daniel Center come and be part of that ceremony. It started off very small. Today, I think I probably have about 100 young men that I've adopted into this process. In our prayers, we're always asking the Creator to direct the young people back this way.
I always wash my hands in the river, wash my face in the river. For me, that's part of what I do for my healing journey, to just be by this water, touch the trees. A big chunk of my life was spent in jail. So taking Spirit of Your Warrior in prison was life-changing. It taught me how to be responsible for my thoughts. It taught me how to accept some of the events that took place in my life. It taught me how to take my power back. I started to learn things in a new way, going to ceremony, being able to be honest, learning how to decompress in a good way and not punch the walls and smash things. fear was the biggest barrier for me, beginning to look at myself, to be able to sit back and look at my life like a vision board, doing ceremony, sitting with elders and listening and not even sharing those dark moments. I took a lot of teachings out of there, and it was a lot about being vulnerable. It was a lot about being open. I was scared to step into those pieces of myself that were shattered. It took a lot of time to walk into the powerful piece of what my ancestors held. Yes, there's the trauma there, but also looking at all the gifts that have been passed down.
When we look at the cycles of breaking law or going back into the judicial system over and over again, we can break those patterns by creating cycles of healing. When we integrate culture, ceremony, connection with land, all of a sudden they start breaking the cycle of trauma. When trauma shows up, it means that we have these intrusive thoughts. It means that we have this shakiness in our system. And the definition of the Western way is that there's something wrong with you. But in the Indigenous way is that those are all pieces of medicine, that our elements inside our body are trying to tell us something. Intergenerational trauma requires a healing that's body-based healing. Our ceremonies help us with all of those things. To be in a Sundance, to be in a sweat, they're all allowing the body to heal and channel this energy. Our body is healing. We can't be in our head in the Sundance. And even when we sing, we can't sing from our head. We sing from here. I notice when my clients are attending court in general, it's very traumatizing. Even the thought of court. Court systems are part of a colonial system, and that is very difficult to trust for Indigenous people. A lot of times when we're in court and we're standing in front of a judge, we want to be heard and we want to be seen. Sometimes our emotions can get the best of us, where they're only going to see those emotions, and then we feel very shameful. And so I would really practice speaking it, practice standing on your 2 feet on the ground and being grounded, and also expect the emotions to come. I would expect them and plan for them. It could be one little thing that somebody looks at me differently, or I hear something and then all of a sudden I'm very dysregulated. And when I don't have capacity, or when I'm getting triggered, or when I can't be with my family because it's really difficult, and it's like, oh, I need to go to a sweat and pray, or I need to go to therapy and get that support of moving this energy. Intergenerational trauma is a soul wound. It was to take our spirit away. This is a spiritual battle, and you do have to build your spirit. You have to protect your spirit. You have to feed your spirit. You have to heal your spirit. Look for the eagle flying. Look for the butterfly that's in front of you. Look at how land is supporting you, even in the moment when you feel like you have nothing. The trees hear you. Land heals. And sometimes we don't have the right provider or the right support. That's okay. We have this. We have ways to support ourselves.
How do you go forward from the Warrior Program and begin to use some of the tools that we talked about? How do you stay out of jail? At least that's my goal, and I want it to be your goal.
To get out of jail?
Get out of jail and stay out of jail. I want it to be a permanent thing for you.
I took like programming and stuff like that, and going to sweats and speaking to elders and stuff like that, and learning about forgiveness. To let go of the past, you have to forgive the people that have hurt you, and you have to learn to forgive yourself for the people that you've hurt, right? And then trying to make amends with those people that you have hurt.
It's easier to hide behind a bottle and drugs and shit, like everything else, but the reality is that, I don't want my kids seeing that way of life. I want to show them something they can look up to, and the stuff I've seen when I was that age led me to where I'm at now, right? So when I do see them, I'll be able to show them and talk to them about everything that I learned in this program, of how not to hold their feelings in and bottle them up and like talk to me. You know, I'm there for them. Like the people that I didn't have when I was growing up that should have been there for me, right?
I've been an addict because of all those scars and all that suppressed feelings and everything that, you know, that started from my grandma, you know, to my dad, to me, and, you know, even into my kids, you know, because they don't have their parents, you know, because I'm in jail and the mother's not around. So, you know, that's the generational trauma is still there. Now, coming into this program, you know, I'm trying to feel more and understand what that means and to express it in a way that's, you know, healthy and, you know, and to listen to people and to move on.
Mm-hmm. And you will. Mm-hmm. I know you will.
I don't know if you could really fully understand unless you're in the group what happened in the last 9 weeks. It's not just this room and in the circle. There's counter stuff out there. Guys were talking to psychologists, guys were talking to the facilitators, guys were talking to their parents, their kids. It was just like a chain, like went out to across all the places that we come from. And all this healing was going out to our families. So I thank Creator for an opportunity to have been with this group of men.
I believe that there's always going to be a time and a place, and when you're ready, that's when the healing will take place. You can't just force someone and say, you know, you're going to heal today. Doesn't work that way. So I would just say that I would pray for them, that they would have that open mind and that open heart, and that they're worthy of it.
I'm still dealing with like some of the trauma that I've been through, right? It's like our culture and our teachings. It's not just something you learned and you stop. It's something that's lifelong. And one of the things that like I learned is that not everybody is out to get you, right? Not everybody's out to hurt you. Learning to trust, right? Even if it's just a little, right? That's probably one of the biggest things that I learned.
Opens up our eyes to how to use these gifts that we have in our life and the tools that we kind of pushed aside but didn't realize they're important now, using them to carry on each day. So it really helped me change in my spirituality. I started fasting and Sundance fasting, and it's the way we always been doing it. I think that's the way that I should be going.
I'm going to be able to go out there and live a successful life, right? I already, last year with my post-secondary, moved into my master's. I got an awesome relationship with my mom. And the one thing I got was able to sakito, and something an elder taught me. I'm able to love. I'm going to be successful at what I do. You know, I want to work with people. There's 3 areas I want to work in: the area of violence, addictions, and trauma. I was never supposed to get out of prison again. Look at me now.
You know, all those things that you didn't feel as a youth, you get them back, and you get to be a human again. You get to feel, you get to have love and be the best version of yourself that you deserve. Because it's not your fault that whatever happened to you, you know, as a young person, it's not your fault and you're not alone.